Hey, how's it going, do-it-yourselfers? Today we got another Q&A video, and this one you're gonna hear me rant about how superior the German vehicles are to all the other vehicles. All right, kidding aside, I got a question from a viewer, and I'm gonna stop saying people's screen names just in case they don't want to be mentioned in my videos. But basically it goes as, hey Ratchets, great videos. I've noticed you work a lot on Audis. I was wondering if you could tell me whether it's a good idea to buy a used older Audi, assuming I only have $3,000 to spend. If yes, which ones do you recommend? All right, great question. However, if you get only $3,000 to spend, you're going to be very limited in your options. There is one or two options out there that I'm going to go over in this video. However, you're going to be still very careful in what you choose. In other words, make sure you watch this video all the way to the end. Otherwise, instead of enjoying a great driving experience in your German vehicle, you're going to be enjoying a poor experience riding the bus to work. All right, as some of you are well aware, I do own a 2000 Audi A6 Quattro. However, this one comes with a 2.7 liter bi-turbo V6 engine. And I do not recommend getting this engine if you're looking for a reliable car. Now, as you know, I bought this car to modify it. However, life has happened and I haven't been able to get to it, but I promise that's going to change real soon. All right, so if you get $3,000, you may be looking at an older Audi or a Passat if you want to get a Volkswagen that has the 1.8 liter 4-cylinder turbo engine. That's going to be one of your options. The other option is going to be the V6 2.8 liter. That's a non-turbo or naturally aspirated. We will get into that later in this video. I'm going to tell you which one I would choose. But first, let's go on with the 1.8 liter. All right, so on the 1.8 liter, you should definitely stick to the years between 98 to 2001 for reasons I'll mention in a bit. Now, again, these cars, you have the option for a 5-speed automatic or a 6-speed manual transmission. The engines on these cars produce about 150 horsepower and 155 pound-feet of torque. You can get these in all-wheel drive setups, or quattro as Audi calls it, or front-wheel drive, which is generally for the Passats. All right, so on these, two major problems can arise if the previous owners haven't or didn't keep up with the oil changes, or maybe they used the wrong oil. They used conventional oil instead of the fully synthetic oil, which is recommended by Volkswagen. So the first major problem is your turbocharger failing. If that happens, you're going to be stuck with a large repair bill. So yeah, the engine oil capacity on these cars is rather small. It's only 3.7 quarts. On the other hand, these engines are turbocharged, which means they produce a lot of heat. That's not enough oil to dissipate that much heat coming from the turbocharger. And if you don't replace the oil on time, it breaks down. Or if you use the wrong oil again, let's say you don't use fully synthetic oil, you can't dissipate heat. And if you can't do that, your turbocharger is going to fail prematurely, or you're going to develop engine sludge. And when you get extensive engine sludge, that is bad news for your engine. Engine sludge can clog up the oil pickup tube. That's very common on the 1.8 liters. It can clog up other areas where oil travels through your engine, starving your engine of oil. When that happens, you're going to have bearings fail, your camshaft, your lifters. Any of those failing can result in you needing a new engine. Now, these two problems, for the most part, can be avoided if people use the right oil and they use it on time on their cars. However, you find that a lot of owners, either they don't use the right oil or they don't do the oil changes on time due to cost reasons. All right, something else you need to know about the 1.8 liter is that these engines come with a timing belt that has to be replaced on time. Since these engines are an interference engine, which means if you don't replace the timing belt and if it breaks, your valves will hit the top of your piston, causing catastrophic engine failure. All right, so if you've been a subscriber to my channel for a few years, you would know that I used to buy and sell these cars. In fact, I have a video on how when I replaced the cylinder head on a 1.8 liter due to this exact problem. You know, the timing belt wasn't replaced, it broke, bent the valve in the cylinder head. I pulled the cylinder head off, had it rebuilt, put it back together, car ran, and then I sold it for a profit. Now, in my opinion, this is not a problem with the car. This is not a negative to the Audi or the Volkswagen 1.8 liter. This is simply people not being aware that it's going to cost more to maintain these German cars, and it's not going to cost the same as it would to, you know, replace the timing belts on a Honda Civic or a Toyota Corolla. Because in order to gain access to the timing belts on these cars, you would need to put the car into the service position for the timing belt, which involves, but not limited to, removing the front bumper cover, the bumper shocks, either pushing or pulling away the radiator and the radiator support to gain access to the timing belt covers and the timing belt. Now that Usually not something you have to do when you're servicing a Toyota or a Honda. Now you're also going to deal with oil leaks on these cars. Most annoying one I would say is probably the half moon seal that's under the camshaft chain tensioner that you can only replace, or you should replace, along with your camshaft seals and camshaft caps when you replace the timing belt, because that's when it's going to be the easiest to access these and replace these. All right, so that's the bad or things you need to be aware of. Now the good. The good part is that these engines are actually pretty solid. They're not known for developing overheating issues, overheating out and over, leaving you in need of a head gasket, or even developing knocks without warning. As long as, again, you keep up with the maintenance, the oil changes are due on time, and use the right oil. So those are the main things you need to be aware of on the 1.8 liter engine. Now there are a couple other ones, but we're not going to cover them because this video is going to end up being 35 minutes long if we do. But on the transmission side, it's very important you stick to the 98 to 2001 Audis and Passats with the 1.8 liter, because starting in 2002, Volkswagen started using their CVT transmissions on these cars, and those were really terrible transmissions. They had a high failure rate, but they were used mainly on, or only on, the front wheel drive Passats and Audi A4s. The Quattros were good, and even the front wheel drives in 98 to 2001 were also good transmissions. Now generally speaking, a manual transmission would be more reliable than an automatic transmission on any car. However, the manual Audi transmissions did suffer from synchro issues, if I remember correctly, from in their first and third gears, which basically meant you had to rebuild your manual transmission. In fact, at some point I'm pretty sure I have to rebuild this transmission in this car. The first gear feels kind of funny. So yeah, sticking with the automatic transmissions on these cars is not a bad choice. All right, something else you need to be aware of is that these cars, especially the 2.8 liter, and I'm sure almost certain the 1.8 liter as well, have very low ground clearance. So yeah, you're buying an all-wheel drive vehicle if you buy the Quattro, but don't go off-roading or off the paved road, because the low ground cover and the aluminum engine oil pan don't mix. A lot of times, actually I bought cars like that, and I have a video on replacing an engine oil pan that cracked due to this exact reason. You know, as soon as you hit something, you're gonna crack that engine oil pan, all the oil is gonna spill out, destroy your engine. So yeah, when driving your fine superior, well, I guess not so superior German vehicle, make sure you stick to the Autobahn. Better choice in my opinion would be a 1998 to 2001 Audi A6 or a Volkswagen Passat with a 2.8 liter dual overhead cam V6 naturally aspirated engine. Now these cars came with either a 5-speed automatic transmission or a 6-speed manual transmission, and the engines on these cars produce 200 horsepower and 207 pound-feet of torque. All right, so why the A6 with the 2.8 liter instead of the 1.8? It's pretty simple. The 2.8 liter is naturally aspirated. It doesn't have a turbocharger. Turbocharger can't fail. Also, it's a larger engine. It doesn't have the engine sludge problems that the turbocharged 1.8 liter does, but it does have a timing belt like the 1.8 liter, and it does have to be replaced on time because it also is an interference engine. However, the labor and the cost in parts is pretty much identical. The cost in parts might be just slightly higher because it's a V6 engine, and you might need to spend a bit more money on the valve cover gasket, the seals for the camshaft on both sides instead of just having one bank. But the labor is exactly the same. It's the same procedure for the 1.8 liter and the 2.8 liter pretty much to get to service the timing belt. But yeah, if it's not serviced properly, if the camshaft half moon seal and the caps are in their place, you're gonna have to deal with oil leaks. So again, it's important to make sure that the timing belt along with those seals have been replaced on time. And yes, obviously the 2.8 liter, especially when it's paired up with the Quattro setup, it is going to be worse gas mileage than the 1.8 liter. However, it is well worth the extra horsepower and the driving experience. I still remember how I was always almost excited to get into my Passat or Audi that had the 2.8 liter and go for a drive. So yeah, as far as the question on whether I would recommend getting an Audi if you only have $3,000 to spend, yeah, obviously I would. I would recommend a 98 to 2001 Audi with a 2.8 liter, making sure that the previous owner has replaced the timing belt, the water pump, tensioners, and also the camshaft seals and the half moon seal that goes under the camshaft chain tensioner. Get yourself a Quattro or an all-wheel drive if you can help it, and if the previous owner has replaced the transmission fluid, that is even better. As in, replace the transmission fluid in the past, not right before you buy it. That's usually not a good sign. Come, butthead. Come. Okay. Hey. All right, guys, that's it for this video. And here are Beavis and Butthead. They just got out of the house, so they're kind of anxious to go for their run.